Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another episode of High and Tight. I'm Jason Burton, the PBR Virginia DC Scouting Director. Today we have a special guest joining us, Coach Billy Wagner, head coach at the Miller School. Coach, good morning. How are you?
Good, Jason. How are you?
I'm doing good. We had to work through some kinks to get things kicked off this morning, but we figured it out, taking a little different route this morning. But regardless, we're ready to go. All right, Coach, I want you to take us back to the day and time that you decided to become a high school coach. What factors played into that decision, and kind of give us the why behind why you became a baseball coach?
Well, I think it was a no-brainer that I was going to be a high school coach at some point. How it came to be was sooner than I expected. I'd been coaching in the falls when I was playing Little League, my kids and other kids, and just getting into it, getting a feel for it. And then when I retired, I'd coached a bunch of younger kids. And once I retired, I was just going to plan to take a year or so off, just kind of figure out what I want to do to learn how to be a dad and a husband and being around and things like that. But there was a situation that came up at the Miller School. And the funny is, I didn't even know where the Miller School was. And I'm 15. I'm 15 minutes from it, and I didn't even know where it was at. And so there was a parent that called me and said, "Hey, can you go look at the Miller School? I need some help." And so I go up to talk to Miller School about just what's going on with the baseball program and stuff like that. And at the time, Sammy Bill was the head coach. And I've known Sammy since I'd moved into the area in 2000. And so I go up and I'm asking, and I find out that there's not a lot of support at the school. They'd won a state championship. Sammy had been successful, but they had trouble just having things going on. Just not enough coaches, not enough kids, not a lot going on. And so I go up and I talk to the athletic director, kind of seeing what's going on. And at that point, he looks at me and goes, "Well, can you do better?" And as it went, I said, "Yeah, I can." And he goes, "Well, okay, when do you want to start?" And that was within about 8 months that I'd retired. And so, I come back and I'm telling my wife, I'm like, "Hey, I think I've got a job." And she's like, "Well, that's not the discussion we'd had." And so one thing led to another, but I'm telling her it's probably not going to be but about an hour and a half, 2 hours a day. Not a big deal. Kind of throw some BP, that kind of stuff. That was being type A. That didn't go well either, because I'm there about 8 hours a day. And so, but my high school coach was a huge mentor, best friend of mine, and he'd coached in Tazewell for 36 years and was very successful and very influential to me in my career and what I wanted to be as a coach. And so when that was the opportunity, when I got that opportunity, I really embraced it. And it's been just for me, it's been more of what I wanted to be. I enjoy it probably more than I did when I actually played.
So, funny story. I know you have no recollection of it. Of that day, but I think it was I would say probably somewhere in the lines of 2014-ish, somewhere in there. You were coaching for a travel organization, and Will was playing.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, you walk up, and I was coaching on the other team, and the guy I was coaching with was like, "There's Billy Wagner, his son's playing." I was like, "What?" And I looked over, and of course, you're in the dugout. And I look at Will, and I'm gonna be honest with you, Will was a small little fella. And we'll kind of get to that, but to see, just the progression of a player. I mean, he was a small dude. I think he played second base.
Oh yeah,
Um,
it was,
and
and that was the hardest thing as a dad coach. Being a coach was easy, but being the coach was easy. Being a dad was the thing I had to figure out, was how do I be the coach when I got to be the coach and the dad? Because I was probably really hard on Will but just because he had IQ, but he couldn't move out of his shadow. His hands and feet were bigger than anything on his body. And I mean, the bat was being knocked out of his hand. Having the ability to sit there and go, hey, this will work out. That took some getting you. That was hard because, I coached with Total Performance, and then I moved to the Richmond Braves. I moved to the Canes before going to the Invaders. But in all those steps, learning the process of how guys were, late bloomers and things like that really stood out. But when it's your son, and knowing from my history that I was a late bloomer, was one thing. But then, all these emotions start to come back when you start to hear these coaches start to talk about your kid. And that's when learning to be a coach and a dad was, I had to be able to stomach a lot of things that were being said. And I mean, I remember one travel organization I coached for, they did this thing at James River, and we were running. And Will was so slow. Holy God, he was slow as could be. And, undersized, feet, size 14s when he was 11 years old. I mean, it was crazy. And I remember a coach just absolutely wearing him out about being slow and that he would never make it. He would never play at the next level. It was the hardest, it was the worst and the greatest moment of my coaching career as a father, as a coach, because I got to look at him. Will's in tears and he's embarrassed because he's saying it right in front of all these kids. And I said, that's the greatest stepping stone you'll ever need. I said, you'll never need me to motivate you to play baseball. I said, that guy just did that for you. And so, he took that and grew. He finally grew in going into his senior year. And then, all the things that I heard about Will Wagner, holy cow. I mean, geez, talked about how Lily was and not being good at it's the greatest experience of my life now that he's in big league camp with the Astros, because now I get to sit back and laugh at him because I can tell you they don't know about baseball. And it's great. It's great from a father and a coach to sit there and go, you can't judge the book by its cover all the time. And so that's really helped me as a coach and a father to look at these kids. And really what the premise is, it's not about winning, about coaching a kid to have the opportunity to be the best he can be. And I think so. I really have enjoyed that. But Will was a very difficult. He was he's the learning tool for me about coaching and hearing all the negatives and stuff like that. And so that has helped me to want to be a coach even more with kids and stuff. And I tell you, being a coach is the greatest thing I've ever accomplished.
No, like I said, that's a good story. I don't think just because of me coaching high school, public school in Central Virginia, didn't get a chance really to see Will kind of after that. And then I'll be honest, it wasn't a good day for Will that day. But like you say, he was a smaller, younger guy. I want to say he might have been playing up even at that time.
Oh yeah. Well, Tanner
and-
Morse is on his team. Tanner Morse was on his team. Connor Gillespie was on his team. Nathan Gentry was on his team. I mean, he was by far and away the littlest guy. There was no getting around that. If you were looking around to see the next big leaguer, he was not the guy you're looking for.
And the last time I had seen him was at that game, and then a couple of years later he's committed to Liberty. I'm like, wow, okay. And then you see him just absolutely take off at Liberty and just have a stellar career there. So kudos to Will and kudos to you for sticking to your guns and
I'm
him
glad
getting
that's
that
over.
motivation.
I'll tell you that. I am so glad that part of is over, because that is for any parent is I have more emotions for the parents and probably a more understanding when I have kids and parents and they're asking me about these things, and they're you hear all the social media with the kids getting committed at 14 years old, and here's a kid who's 5'2" and not even 100 pounds, and he's worried about that next step. Going through what Will taught me has allowed me to talk to these kids and go, hey, you'll have his place. At the end of the day, you'll all get to the same spot. You just got to trust the process. And that is another reason why coaching has been near and dear to my heart, because of the ability to be personal with the kids to the point where it's not a win at all costs. I mean, my career record, I couldn't even tell you what wins and losses Miller's ever had. I know that at the end of the day, we want to be playing on the very last day of the season, and that's what we talk about. But the kids, are my concern. I'm probably the worst coach in Virginia, but I'm more in the motivating and building them for the process. They play and make me look good, but I honestly am more diligent on the practices and execution. And these kids, they thrive on that. They love that, and that's what from coaching is for me.
Well, I think some would disagree with you're the worst coach in Virginia. So I think we'll steer away from that one. You're being modest. Um, but you have a beautiful field, facilities, and set up at Miller School. It's tucked away for those of you that haven't been there, tucked away in the hills and mountains of Charlottesville. In terms of player experience, what would you say is kind of most special about Miller School and the Mavericks program?
Well, you better like baseball. You better like it because I know parents talk about specializing and multiple sports and stuff like that, and I'm all for that. But what the thing that allows Miller to be special is that we do have great facilities. We have a turf field. We have a indoor cages. We have our own indoor weight facility. We have multiple coaches that coach each position, and it allows you to progress at your own pace. There's no rush to be a varsity player when you're not ready, and so we create as many games as possible with that in mind. And so Miller being a private school, they have allowed me to create a program that allows kids to play at a higher level, a lot more games, win and losing, and not be the pressure of the actual reward at the end. But but you drive up on Miller's campus, and that's not what you're expecting. You're not looking for a baseball field that is more modern. I mean, you drive up on the campus, and you're looking at a boarding school from the 1800s that is one of the oldest on the East Coast, and so you see Hogwarts. As soon as you drive up, you're like, holy cow, this is really cool. And then you drive over, and then you've got a modern field, and there's still a lot that I think they just kind of blows their mind. I can't tell you the teams that have come in and went, this is not what we expected. But the kids love it, and they I think they're a little bit more blue collar because it's not you're not given quite as much. You have to do the work. I mean, we're not we're not IMG or anything like that, and the coach is old school blue collar, and your prep and how you go about your business gets you playing time, and it truly does, because we don't have 60 kids. There's not. Our tryouts is every single day. I can't tell you how many times I've set my best player because he didn't put out during practice, or I've kicked my best player out of practice because he's not willing to do the things that I'm asking everybody to do. And I tell you, we've had some awesome players. We've had some great players come through there that are probably going to be in the big league someday soon, and they understand the process. And also the biggest thing is there's a relaxed urgency to what we do, with being able to sit there and practice every day and work on skills every day, and have a fall, a winter workout, and a spring that allows you to probably specialize, which is to some would probably be like outrageous. But when you love a sport, when you truly love a sport, it's about mastering that sport. And for anybody that's went and played, there's only a handful of guys that I know and competed against that were good in football and good in baseball. And Deion Sanders, Bo Jackson, and Brian Jordan were two of the greatest I've ever competed against, to know that, wow, that's possible. But today's game is not as easy to do the multiple sports and do that. And so Miller gives you the opportunity to kind of specialize in that opportunity and enjoy the ups and downs. But it's not like we're playing games every day. We do take breaks with our workouts to build their physicality and their growth, and allow them to build at their pace. Not everybody's coming in and having to be a D1 athlete. There's we need you to be the best you can be. And that's how we work our programs.
So, kind of on that note, you mentioned the players that you've had an opportunity to coach. Um, I think kind of as far back as your oldest son, Will, we talked about, who, like you said, just got an invite to the big league spring training with the Astros. You have Adam Hackenberg, who was a star at Clemson, Tanner Morris, Garrett Payne, who is at NC State, Ethan Chenault, who's at UNCW, your middle son, Jeremy Wagner, Ethan Murray, Drew Hackenberg, Jacob Exum, Henry Cook, TJ Brooks. The list kind of goes on. What has been special? What would you say has been special about those guys, and any others that I may not have mentioned? Like, what are some outlying characteristics that have been kind of separators for those guys?
Well, I tell you where it all started was when we first got to Miller. When I first got to Miller, we had a young man named Mike Daly. Mike Daly ended up going and playing at VCU and really set the tone for our program. And then Cody Rose was there. My first varsity team only had two seniors and one sophomore, and the rest were eighth graders. And their leadership helped Will Wagner grow, and then Anita Murray came, and then all of a sudden Tanner Morris, then Adam Hackenberg, but all of them had to grow and really learn their what baseball was, because Adam was a football player, and so now you become an everyday baseball player getting ready to go to Clemson. You had to learn how to prepare every single day in the winter, in some, just to be ready to go into that type of high setting. And then and so you put that group. Tanner Morse was so gifted in high school. He was one of the best hitters I'd ever gotten to coach. And he taught me a lot about, just watch, being a coach to watch, not coaching being a micromanager. He was really good at being on the field. And and then you put, Ethan Murray. The guy that kind of gets overlooked is Connor Gillespie, who was right before that group. They played right before that group, right before Adam came. Connor Gillespie was there. We've had great leadership that's led the way. I think the thing that's Jack Maslow just got he got drafted, committed and went to, or not committed, but he got free agent to the Pittsburgh Pirates, and so. There's 5 or 6 guys that are in the minor leagues from our program. And, like you mentioned, a bunch more that will probably have that opportunity. But it's the leadership from each group that has helped the other ones grow, because they like looking at the banners that talk about championships, and they like the work ethic. And another guy that is overlooked is Jack Morris. Jack Morris came from Greene County, and I helped him rehab from Tommy John. And he was a huge motivator for the Will Wagners and the Ethan Murrays. He led through he was like a player of the state. Ended up going to Liberty, then North Greenville, and now he's come back and he works for our program as our speed and strength guy who had got his degree, and now he's given back to our program. And so these guys continue to come back, and they continue to be leaders. And I think that's what stands out to these guys. And and that's what a coach, what your program's about when people come back and they're wanting to give. Garrett Payne, we're in the weight room. He comes in and has he talks to all of our team about what he has to do on a daily schedule and what the grind is, because in high school you're checking boxes, and when you go to college, if you check boxes, you're going home. And so he's helped guide, and the clinics that Hackenberg does with our catchers. Henry Cook got to learn from him. There's just a lot of guys that continue to come back, but to me, that's the mark of your program. The guys that want to come back, and give back and help the other guys.
I talked to Coach Francisco at Abingdon High School yesterday, and he kind of said the same thing, just the importance of, for him, it was even guys coming back, sitting in the stands, bringing their family, him getting an opportunity to kind of see their kid, those kids grow up, and just that mark that they leave more so is maybe even more so once they leave as opposed to when they were there.
Absolutely. That's the mark of your program. You know, we talk about how do you want this program to be when you leave? Because when you come back, you know, are you gonna see, you know, the shadows of what you had, and has it grown? And so, you know, we talk about that because today's leaders have to be different. They have to be different people because the social media creates such performance anxieties and anxieties for these guys. So being a good person, a good leader is the strongest push we have now.
All right, so 2022 team had a really nice run in the state championship game last year. I know there were kind of I guess maybe some ups and downs throughout the year, but made it to the state championship game. I know I got to be there. I was there on Saturday, couldn't be there on Sunday on the continuation. But before that storm on Saturday, it was a pretty chippy, pretty fiery start to it. I know we talked a little bit about it before. You lost a lot of pitching off of that team. How do you see the 2023 squad shaping up, and kind of what are you most excited about with this group?
Well, what I'm excited about is the unknown. You know, and what I'm worried about is the unknown, of course. We've gotten a little stronger, a little more mature on the offensive and defensive side with having Jack McMullen come in. We've had Dom Caffarillo come in as a catcher as well, who can play some outfield. I think with a newcomer, Jackson Ingram, has come from Buffalo Gap, who is going to West Virginia, kind of is a guy that's kind of unseen, kind of, you know, people will be excited to see him when they see him as a leadoff guy because he's explosive. He's not a big guy, but he's an explosive guy that you have to be aware of. If you come in there and take him lightly, he can hurt you. But he's you know, he's come to me. His actual grandfather was my high school football coach. So, you know, it's the people you know sometimes that help you out. So I have to give a shout out to Coach Go for that. But him, and then you have the hopefully the maturity rises with the Rakes, who looks really good right now. The Devin Christophers, who are starting to kind of find their own and seeing what it is to be the guy, like an ex-member TJ Brooks. But I think, you know, there's that probably the Will Townsend, who kind of didn't get a lot of publicity and is probably like that best athlete guy that can come in there and be 90-92 with a 12-6 hammer, who has the most upside of our staff. And he's a senior, but you know, we have two quality arms. It's just, can they go and compete against the better teams with the maturity that we're going to need, where, you know, our pitching staff, we drop off to a lot of sophomores and freshmen. And, you know, we have 43 games this year in which we have put, you know, they're going to get a ton of innings, a ton of experience. There's going to be a lot of ups and downs, but, you know, with our goal playing in the last 3 games of the year. And that's what I tell them, you know, it doesn't matter. We've got to go out and learn how to compete.
So we've gone through the guys like Devin Christopher, Dom, Jackson, Jack, you know, some of those committed guys. Who are maybe 1 or 2, maybe younger or just uncommitted guys that have a chance to make an impact, whether it be this year or long term?
Well, I tell you, there's the guy that stands out right now, and he's probably one of our youngest sophomores. He just turned 15 not too long ago. Is Jackson Rosales, who is going to be a high level player, and he, you know, he's like 6'3", you know, 205. I mean, when he walks out, you notice him, and so, you know, this is a year that we're hoping that he's going to break out and become more of that offensive threat, and because his defense has already been a big plus for us. You know, but, you know, some of the guys that could surprise us on the mound would be Dylan O'Connor, who transferred over, and then you have Kason Wagner, Jacob Rex Rhodes, and a Jacob Campbell from Amherst, who will have come in, and they'll get a ton of pitching time, a ton of infield stuff. But we have quite a bit of experience in our defense and offense this year, and we haven't had that in a while. We've had probably way too many pitchers in our lineup than we have, and now we've got a really good situation with having less pitchers in our lineup, more actual hitters with Dom and Mac, Ingram, Rakes, Rosales. That now, and you don't want to leave out a Caden Richter, who is a left-handed bat that is starting to get back into his form and has shown a big upside with his offense. And so, offensive and defensive, we've got some maturity, and it's not something that's leaving right away. We'll have a pretty good bill for the next couple of years in that regards, but it's really good to see that these guys are starting to feel in that senior year. So for this year, our 2023 year, it's all going to come down to our pitching, and our pitching's as I've told these young guys, I said, you're not going to throw 95. We're not worried about your velocities. It's more about, I need you to pitch to contact. You're going to give up runs. We're going to have to battle and do some things, but walks will be an issue, and we've got to keep them understanding that giving up runs and hits are not the worst thing in the world. We've got to compete at that point.
Now, it's always good when you don't have to put a ton of pitchers in the lineup, right? Can you attest to that?
Yes. I tell you, in high school, it's awesome when everybody plays that two-way situation. But I think some of the funniest things that come back is every college tends to tell all the people that are pitchers that they want to come to their school that they're going to be a two-way. We're going to give you an opportunity to be a two-way player, and it takes me the whole year going, no, you're not. And I love Jacob Exum to death, and he was so good for us. But I tell you, I'm so glad he's probably going to go and play pro ball as a pitcher, so that he doesn't hate me for not letting him be a hitter, because he wasn't a hitter. He was a very good field general, a very good leader on the field, and that's why he was on there. But but those are guys that it's hard to explain that. To the moms and dads all the time that, hey, when a college goes, you're going to be a two-way player. That's just their way of saying, hey, we really want you. The Drew Hackenbergs, Drew swore up and down that they said he was going to be a two-way. And TJ Brooks, they've all said that you're going to be a two-way. And no, you're not. It's just understanding that it's okay. I mean, when I went to college thinking I was going to be this great center fielder and couldn't get the ball out of the cage. And so I pitched. And so, when those things happen, it's hard for these kids to understand it. But I try to be as real with them as possible, and and I tell them, I said, I could be wrong, but I said, if you're not hitting in our lineup, I don't know how you're going to hit in that lineup. But you never know.
All right, some quick hitters. Favorite stadium to pitch in?
It's funny because some of the stadiums were really they changed during the day and at night. Like Three Rivers was so much fun when it was at night, because it would seem so close. Dodger Stadium, before they changed everything. I mean, you were looking like being on two islands, going from one island to the other. It was so big. The backstop was so big. So I think Three Rivers. You also had. I was not a big. I didn't pitch very well when I was on the West Coast, but probably PNC Park, Three Rivers. It was good to pitch in the Astrodome, of course. I mean, you could watch some balls get launched and be caught at the track, but I like the older places, Boston and Wrigley, but I think Three Rivers, those kind of stand out. That Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, and they all during the day they were different than they were at night.
So obviously, the goal every year is to end up at Shepherd, and you've walked up on that mound a time or two. Would you have liked to throw off of that? It's pretty high mound. I feel like you can get down on it pretty quick.
Well, Yeah, yes. I mean, and how that field has transformed since the first time we went out there. I mean, that facility has really grown. I love going there. Our kids love doing that. Our school team loves going to do that. But yeah, that would be a nice ending to your career if you get to pitch on that. I mean, I tell our pitchers out there, I said, man, I mean, you are straight downhill. You can really do some damage right there. So, and usually you see the good pitching in that situation because they're hyped up for that situation, but the mound and the field is really pristine. And so, they really get after it.
All right. Favorite pregame or postgame meal when you were playing?
I wasn't. When I was playing, I had such a hard time eating because I was a bag of nerves. So I didn't eat very much. I eat a little bit of everything all day. And so I didn't, there was not one meal. I mean, I'd go out with my wife to eat at lunchtime and the nerves would start to sit in and I'd feel like I was going to be late and I would eat half of whatever I was eating. So I don't know if I had a great one, something that I had to eat. But after the game and the nerves had settled and stuff like that, then it was game on. I mean, that's why I'm overweight as it is, because that was the fun part for me. And then I got older, but I could eat anything. I mean, I'm a meat and potatoes mama's boy. So, if you had anything to do with either steak and potatoes or something like that, that was going to be part of my meal plan.
All right. Kind of, we gave this one to Joe Mantiply, who's with the Diamondbacks. We gave this to him the other week. Least favorite hitter to face when you played? You can't say Bonds because you dominated Bonds.
Well, I tell you, no, I like facing Barry and I like facing so I like those guys. I like the guys that take you deep because if they took you deep, they took everybody deep. So who cares? The guys that drove me crazy, the guys that I didn't enjoy the most were guys that I consider to be pesky. And I mean, Eckstein, Juan Pierre, Miguel Olivo wore me out. I think he hit 600 off of me. And I mean, I couldn't get him out. I mean, guys that weren't looking to do a whole lot of damage, and every big league hitter can hit a home run, but the likelihood of certain guys doing it were slimmer. But it was easier to face a guy who was more of a one-dimensional guy. He wasn't really looking to hit a single. If he hit one, he was okay, but he was trying to hurt your feelings. And so, the guys that were base runners, the pesky guys, the guy, Juan Pierre stands out to me. Those were guys that I felt were difficult to face, that I did not enjoy at all, because it's just, you would throw 7-8 pitches to those guys, and by the time you're done getting through that at bat, now you're dealing with the guys that you really can't make a mistake for. And so, I really didn't like the Lorettas and guys like that got me to the ones and twos. Like today's game, facing Aaron Judge first would be a pleasure, because I faced that guy, and that guy can't be as good as that. The number 2 is not going to be as good as the number 1. So I'm like, okay, I get through that, and I'm working down the hill. And so where you were working pesky, and then all of a sudden you're dealing with the big guys, the Griffeys and the Bonds and stuff like that. If the 2 got on, they were probably going to score in some facet right there. So you really had to focus. And then when you got past them, I mean, I hate to say it, but I mean, like, I think Barry and Griffey both hit home runs off of me, but they were, that was a joy of facing that part of the game. Was the other guys that were just very difficult to deal with.
That's kind of Mantiply didn't really talk about the pesky guys. Just, it was kind of more so like those weren't necessarily answers that I was expecting from you, and kind of similar with Mantiply, it was kind of out of left field. A guy that just is not a super well-known guy, that just kind of had his number.
Well, I tell you, Miguel Olivo just wore me out. I even threw a knuckleball in the game to him because I couldn't. It was the dangest thing. I mean, I could throw the best pitch and he would bloop it, or he hit a ball 5 feet. He'd hit a ball 400 feet. He'd bloop balls. It was crazy. And I remember, back in the day, the old timers would always tell me, I'd drill that guy, I'd knock him down, I'd do these things, and I'm like, well, that guy's a Gold Glove boxer. And if I knock him down, he decides to come out there, there ain't gonna be nothing I can do but take that beating on national TV. And I said, I am not going that route. And so, you know, facing a Gwynn, you know, you let him get himself out. You know, the Boggs, the Palmoliers, the guys like that, you're like, hey, they got themselves out. But when you're facing, there's just certain guys you're like, and I mean, Miguel would walk up and he would be smiling. I mean, he would make sure I got to the park. He was excited, and he would be in there. And I mean, he just smiled. I just like, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what I was going to do. Here we go. See what you can do. And I mean, but you know, those are the moments you look back at that point. You're like, man, this sucks. But now you look back and you just smile because there's somebody that just, you know, no matter what they're creating. I think he's a 230 hitter. You know, I mean, Brad Osmus, when I played against him after I left Houston, oh my God, it was awful. I think he might have been 350 or something, or I think he was actually 750. I think he was 3 for 4. And I mean, he would get in the box and he would be like going, I'm getting a hit. He would literally like mouth, I'm getting a hit off. And you're just like, and he'd get a base hit and he'd be run to first and looking over, smiling at me. And, you know, you're like, whatever. So yeah, those guys were difficult. I mean, to face, they just were.
That's good stuff, Coach. Well, I think our 40 minutes is about to expire. So I appreciate everything from you today. I appreciate your time. And best of luck this year at Miller.
Oh, yeah, appreciate it. Thanks for having me, Jason.
Thanks, Coach.
See you, buddy. Thanks.
Yep.